Hello everyone. I am going to walk you through each section of our diet analysis project, just as I might do if we were all in class together. This project is worth 20% of your grade in total. We're just in this video going to talk about the first section, but the pieces work together to be a really significant component of your grade. It's also intended to be a hands-on application of what you're learning in our class in a way that will hopefully be beneficial to you personally. The idea is that through the 3 sections of this project, you're going to critically assess your current intake and physical activity habits to determine where you are meeting your needs and where you might want to identify and seek out realistic changes in order to improve your overall health and well-being. You can see here the directions for how you will be graded and how you should submit your assignment in terms of how to name your document title, as well as what needs to be uploaded on the course page. And we'll talk about both of these components, but there are 2 different documents you will need to submit. So let's talk about the actual steps involved in this project. In the first section of the project, your primary focus is going to be on recording and then analyzing your food intake over 3 separate days. So you will be tracking everything you eat and everything you have to drink for 2 consecutive weekdays and at least 1 weekend day. Your directions also tell you not to eat differently than you usually would. No one is going to judge you based on the eating choices that you made during these 3 days. And in fact, the project will be much more meaningful to you if the records that you keep are a relatively accurate reflection of your typical intake. When that's the case, you'll really be able to use the data generated to identify what's working in terms of your current eating and physical activity habits and where there are opportunities to make some tweaks in order to improve your health. So I hope you will bear that in mind, and let's look at what specifically you're going to be tracking. There are 5 main things you're going to be writing down, and they're all listed here, but I'm also going to show you the document you'll be using to track this, and it is the food record, which is also here on our course page. You're asked to note the time that you're eating, identify this as a particular meal, breakfast, lunch, or dinner, or a snack. And when you enter this onto the computer, you will just put everything down as, all snacks will just be labeled as snack, and that's fine. You want to list the food or beverage item and be as specific as you can. When possible, identify the brand or the source. Was it homemade? Did it come from a restaurant, etc.? Also include the preparation method if you know it. And then record the amount or weight. And that might be measured in ounces, grams, fluid ounces, cups, teaspoons, tablespoons. These are probably the most likely measurements that you'll be using. A few tips, or a bunch of them actually. First, don't forget to include anything that you might have added to the food. Condiments, things that you might have stirred into your beverages, the oils that you might have used to cook or prepare the food, etc. Also, don't forget to record all beverages, and that should include water and alcohol. And again, there's no judgment. We just want to see everything you're consuming because it does contribute to your overall dietary intake. It's really important that you are thoughtful about when you are recording these days and that you're getting an accurate representation. Many of you will either under or overshoot your calorie recommendations, but if your recorded intake provides less than 60% of your recommended energy or calorie intake, then you're going to need to contact me so we can discuss why that is, and you will likely need to enter additional days. Track and enter those additional days because we want to make sure we get an accurate reflection. If you're sick and barely eating for 2 out of the 3 days, you're likely going to undershoot your recommendations so far, and it also won't be a useful reflection of what you typically eat. So this is why we have that requirement. So, some more hints. First, if you can, write down the foods as you eat them rather than trying to remember by the end of the day. It's very easy to forget little details, especially the things like those extras, the condiments, the creamer in your coffee, the snack that they had sitting in the office that you were visiting, etc. You also want to, again, remember to be really thoughtful and specific about how the food was cooked. And in particular, was that food fresh, frozen, canned? Was it from a restaurant, etc.? When you can, also include the information. For instance, if it's a canned food, what type of liquid was it packaged in? All the little details you can think of. Now, there are a lot of mixed dishes like casseroles, soups, stews, mac and cheese, things like that are in the database. But if you feel that you want to get really specific about what was in your soup, etc., then if you prepared it yourself and you know those ingredients, or if you have a unique dish that you can't find in the database, then what you can do is list all the individual foods in the recipe. Definitely, of course, if you didn't eat the whole thing, maybe you prepared enough to share with a couple of roommates, you ate a third of it, make sure you then do that math and only enter intake of a third of the total. Whenever possible, try to actually measure out the food so you know the specifics of how much you ate. In the database, when you see prep after a food, it means that it was prepared and ready to eat. So the example here is fruit juice, orange, frozen concentrate, unsweetened, prep. So you're not drinking a cup of orange juice concentrate, but you're actually drinking a cup of orange juice that has been diluted with water. And that's always going to be the case for any food that's listed with prep at the end. That means it's ready to eat. If you make a choice that doesn't have that at the end for something that does need to get prepared, it could really throw off your measurements. So for example, when you see dry oatmeal or rice or pasta, that means that the foods are uncooked. These are foods that often double or triple after they're prepared with water or another liquid. So if you enter your food dry when you mean prepped, you are going to end up indicating much higher calories and nutrient values than what you really consumed. Another tip, many times people think 8 ounces automatically equals 1 cup, but that is only specifically true, or at least consistently true, for liquids. So generally, when you are measuring out dry foods, try to use cups, tablespoons, etc. Use ounces primarily only for liquids or meat or other foods where you might see it on the package and you know exactly the amount that is in that package. It works for some students to take pictures as they are tracking their foods, especially if you can't write everything down at the time. The picture might help jog your memory, but this is not a requirement and you wouldn't need to submit them. So it's really just up to your interest if you want to do that. So finally, the last page here of the directions walks you through how to enter your data that you recorded on those food log pages, which you will submit for this first part of the project, but to enter it into the Nutrition Calc Plus software, which is through our Connect webpage. So just click on that icon. There's a tutorial video available to you, and we also have other resources on the course page to kind of help walk you through. But this tells you how to set up your profile, and I do want to really encourage you to please follow the directions here. The activity level, what we find is that it's pretty common for the software to overestimate people's needs just a bit. So if you overestimate your activity level, these results are not going to be as meaningful to you. So really pay attention to the definitions according to the website and maybe be a little conservative about the category that you select. Also, it may be that you are hoping to either gain or lose weight currently, but for the purposes of this project, we really want to see how well your current intake is meeting your current needs for weight maintenance. And then you would be able to extrapolate and adjust if you are going to try to gain or lose weight, what changes you would make. But for the purposes of this project, please be sure to set your profile as lose 0 pounds or gain 0 pounds. I won't walk through each of these directions here, but please do take a look at these so that you can follow them and know, hopefully fairly easily, how to navigate the Nutrition Calc Plus software and get all of that information in there that you need. Read all the tips. Make sure you do not include supplements or medications for the purposes of this project. Really pay attention to portion sizes. Again, use familiar measurements. In most cases, do not use ounces for solid foods. And if you're really stuck because the options available for a certain type of food don't line up with the way you measured that food, you can just do a search, a Google search, to try to figure out the appropriate conversion. I strongly encourage you to double check your food entries. If there are significant errors in what was entered, the information will not be appropriate, and we will ask you to revise your work and recalculate and resubmit the report. And that can be a lot of time, so it's easier to get it right the first time. So check for all of these things and just making sure everything seems to be accurately reflecting what you've eaten. Do leave the activities section blank, then save the report as a PDF, email it to yourself, and then you can upload that to the course page. And that's it for the first section. Please feel free to contact me if you have any additional questions.